Can expect. We're joined in studio by political analyst Mkhize. Israel, it's good to have you in studio as always. The DA may be optimistic about this afternoon's debate of impeachment, but they're unlikely to enjoy the support of the majority, are they?
Of course, they're not going to enjoy support because there's an overwhelming solidarity for the African political renaissance question by some opposition parties like EFF and the UDM, so which would be very key, even putting there the IFP, which would be very key in this motion if it were to gain some weight. So it's really going to be isolated on this particular case.
How important is it that the DA seem to be in touch, particularly with this pro-Pan-African agenda that we're talking about? Because many of the opposition parties also seem to support what government did, because there just seems to be a confusion around whether or not, South Africa's position on the continent and internationally is still what it was perhaps 20 years ago when we entered into some of these international agreements.
Well, we must remember that the definition of Africa historically vis-a-vis Europe or the West has been drawn along the lines of color. And DA previously had been, unfortunately, seen as a color of white people or as a party of white people. So, which obviously with the black face now leading, which is Musi, there's a sort of a reconfiguration of the party. However, on the question of issues, mind you that they're not just riding on air, they're trying to ride with the decision of the court that South Africa was supposed to act decisively on al-Bashir. However, the government of South Africa argues that the African Union had asked for immunity on certain passages for all the heads of state. Bashir is going to be in China. Bashir has been invited by the UN. Why aren't they suing him there? DA is arguing that no, but those countries may not be the signatories of the Roman Statute. So what we see is that the DA hasn't played a card which shows a certain form of, internally in South Africa, a solidarity with the black political motion. Now, at an African political landscape, because it was an African event, the AU event, casting the Vision 2063. So to want to disturb that and destabilize the political geo-region up there in Sudan, knowing how volatile its current political economy is seen as a form of insolidarity and irresponsibility at a political level. So obviously we're seeing a confliction of the legal imperatives as the constitutional as the constitutional body judge that the South African government is supposed to act. Maybe this brings us back, if you look at the question of impeachment, it's not a javelin that you just throw out at the onset of war. You need to wait and carefully weigh if it will hold. In America, we know that there are only two presidents. If I can use America as an example, there are only two presidents who have been impeached, and even there it wasn't successful. But the most interesting case was the 1867 with Andrew Johnson, who had fired the Secretary of War at the time without consulting with the houses there, because he had to get permission from the joint houses in America to take such a decision. However, he was in 68 rather, they let him off the hook, even though he had violated the tenor of governing. So in this case, the DA is, in my view, currently going to be projected with the division in Parliament as an anti-African Renaissance solidarity kind of a party, because of this tussle between the between the ICC and the political imperatives of the African Union.
And just briefly, Israel, what does it do for the DA to be consistently bringing up whether it's impeachment or motions of no confidence in the president? I mean, does it take away from what they're actually trying to achieve, which is get President Jacob Zuma out of power, or does it add to the criticism that it just makes them a bunch of noisemakers, as some critics have said?
Well, it does tend to blunt their tool. However, I want to isolate the motions of no confidence with the impeachment. With the notions of no confidence, you would find that they had been trying to raise those where there were intervals of maybe moral lack or political controversy around the political scene, around the head of state, then they would rise there. But with the impeachment, because there's a stringent legal route and the weight of impeachment Obviously, the fact that the ANC is a majority in parliament on its own just throws this impeachment attempt away. But it makes it even worse that the whole opposition parties are saying, no, this is some kind of a grandstanding and showing that there's no African solidarity from the DA.
All right, ultimately it might still make for interesting viewing later on this afternoon coming out of parliament, that debate on impeachment. This was a political analyst, Israel Mkhize, in studio with me.